What's up, everyone? Zero here. Welcome back to the channel. Got another episode of the podcast for you guys, and in this one I did something a little bit different. First off, I changed the overlay so that I'm able to share the screen. I can go over and look up in POE some of the things that the guest is talking about. Now, this conversation got a little bit nuanced, so I need you guys to let me know if it's too nuanced, if you guys like the new setup, because this podcast is for you guys. So you need to let me know in the comments how I can improve it, or if you guys love it, let me know too. If you guys are enjoying these, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. Also share the podcast. That really helps get a lot of eyeballs on it. If you want to support the channel further, my Patreon link is in the description. You can also join the YouTube channel. And with that, let's get into it. All right, cool. So just for people who don't know you, can you introduce yourself and how you got into POE?
Yeah, sure. I guess I go by like Butts or Butsy now because my YouTube account or my Twitch account had to be forced renamed because it was inappropriate as Poopbutts 2200. So I'll either go by that, Butts or Butsy. Probably doing a rebrand to Butsy, I guess, just to avoid that in the future because that's ridiculous. But anyways, how I got introduced to POE is my best friend at the time who I used to play we play paper card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I transitioned to Magic the Gathering later. We would go to like tournaments and stuff like that. And he got really into Path of Exile when we were like living together. And I didn't really get it for the longest time because it just seemed kind of boring. But he was saying this scratches like all the same itches that Magic does, like with like the character building and stuff, because with like the deck building kind of aspect. And I tried it and I didn't get it. And I was like just slogging through. And I eventually started leap slamming in Blood Aqueducts. And I was like, oh, I get it. This is incredible. I fucking love this game. And then I became extremely obsessed. And then my Magic playing like waned and my POE playing like went up like a shit ton. This was like right before the Betrayal League launch. So I think it's like 3.04 or is it 3.14 maybe? I don't even remember. I don't remember what league, but it's somewhere back then. So maybe it's like I think 3.05. But yeah.
Yeah, I used to play a ton of Magic the Gathering. When I was younger, though, I mean, I might be a little bit older than you. I'm 41, but it's I used to play it a lot when I was younger. Like that was like a big thing that we played in elementary school, junior high, and then eventually once like the internet started coming around, I started playing up on. We used to have like dial-up, right? We didn't have like cable modems or anything. I used to play text-based RPGs on like these bulletin board systems, like little local hubs that you would dial up to, and they would have like chat rooms. It was like really like the very beginning of the internet. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. That kind of took over my life though. After that, I didn't I didn't go back to playing cards after that.
I have a friend who's really into that. We call it. He always says he's playing Microsoft Word. He likes to play these word-based RPG games.
I wonder.
But, yeah, it's like
that's interesting.
Scripting and stuff.
That's really interesting. I wonder if he plays the same one. The one that I always played was called Major Mud. Does that sound familiar at all?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's wild, dude. I never ever run into people that play that game. That's incredible.
It doesn't seem like a lot of people do. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot of people do. But I mean, I had pretty much the same experience. Like we used to play because it's like I think you're about 8 years older than me. But
okay.
But yeah, I had the same experience with we would play like Yu-Gi-Oh on the playground.
Right.
And that was like the big because that had just come out when I was like in like fourth or third grade or something. It was that was when the initial structure decks came out. So that's when like my like infatuation with like building came about, honestly, because like from like pretty much young age I was always building decks. So then we'd play with our friends, and then one of my friends just like obliterated me, and then I went back to like and made a deck that just crushed his, and I was like, oh, this is like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like the best feeling in the world. And then I just kind of just like, I don't know, just like making things. I don't even care for the gameplay, if anything, that I do.
Right,
I just like to make stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's like a gigantic puzzle, man. That's what I like about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've always liked puzzles since I was like a child. So that's why I like Path of Exile so much, is just the complexity of it. It's one gigantic puzzle, and then you're just like putting it together. And if you're missing one piece, you're going to get annihilated, and you got to figure out what that piece is. So that's one of the reasons why I really like this game. So
yeah, I think it has. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, but I think that's a lot of why you see a lot of overlap between people who play Magic and people who play POE. People like play card games in general, is because they have a lot of the same fundamental building blocks of just like solving a bunch of, because you have like infinite tools to solve problems and like build something, and it's just like I don't know, it's just like you'll see a lot of overlap, and I think it makes a lot of sense because like it truly does feel like, I don't know, just like the same kind of thing where it's just like there's this giant sandbox of pieces you get to put together, and just like, yeah, but that's all I was gonna say.
Right. No, that makes sense. It totally makes sense. Okay, so I have your POB, the Kinetic Bolt Trickster, pulled up. So let me switch the screen real quick. Okay, so what I wanted to kind of do is something a little bit different with this episode, because before what I was doing was just like asking people just really generalized questions about how to solve for defense, how to kind of solve for offense, like what's the importance of curse immunity, all that stuff. Or ailment immunity. But with this, I kind of wanted to get more specific, because you seem to know from what I can tell from your YouTube videos, is you seem to know these builds like inside and out. So I kind of wanted just to go over, we can start with the offense of the build and kind of like how you came about the decisions that you made in this build specifically. So like, so obviously you got Kinetic Bolt. You can see it's linked up to these other skills. How did you come to these support gems? What makes these the best ones for this skill specifically?
So I can talk about like the supports in this in particular, but honestly, the supports in this are very uninteresting. Okay. Because it's just generally the highest damage supports you can use until. Like on the only difference between this and like the Deadeye version that I played initially before this is I had Energy Leech in my main links as opposed to here. Trickster gets that baked in, so you can drop that. Right. But essentially, the links are just like literally the best damage links you can have. And then Awaken Chain to abuse the Runecraft, which the whole reason this build exists is because MANASTORM is one of the strongest offensive items in the game. It just, flat lightning equals half your mana pool is obscene. Like, this character doesn't even have that much mana. It's like around 8,000 mana. That's 4,000 flat lightning top end. That is like, that is just an absurd amount of damage. Like an Ephemeral Edge right now, right? Like you get like what is it, 15% at like if you have 20k ES, you know, but what is that? 3,000 flat lightning. So this is 1,000 more flat lightning than that. And right. 20k ES is like an absurd amount. Like, you won't get that until like crazy investment levels. So essentially, MANASTORM is crazy damage. The problem with it is it's clunky as fuck, because anytime you want to use it, for 4 seconds, you have to sack all your mana. And before this Runecraft, there weren't really ways to refund your mana. So it was always kind of just like a meme item, or you could use it with Snapshot, like Ambush, Rage Vortex, or Bazoinking, because you get that for the whole duration of duration skill. But essentially, because this Runecraft exists, there is a way to refund your mana, which solves MANASTORM's biggest problem.
So what's the reason that we go that you're referring to? Just
Runecraft of it's yeah, sure. It's called a Runecraft of Recompense, I think is how you say that.
Which mastery is it on? Oh, I got it. I found it. I found it on.
Oh, you found it. Okay. Yeah, because when I initially played this build, that wasn't even in POB yet. They did like a Runecraft to mastery. But anyways, yeah, it's for each remaining chain. So it means that anytime a projectile doesn't finish its chain, for each projectile, you get that percentage mana back. So like in this example, Kinetic Bolt fires, I think it's only 4 projectiles, but it splits every time it changes direction, and it changes direction naturally each time, like each projectile 8 times. So it ends up being like 32 instances of potential chains that could happen. Okay. And since the vast majority of those will not happen, you are going to get back like 3 to 4 times your mana pool every time you attack. So it means if you're attacking, you dump your mana pool with MANASTORM in the middle of it, you'll just instantly refund that mana back if your skill costs enough mana.
Oh wow, so that's a really crazy interaction. I would have never thought of that. That's insane.
Oh yeah. Well, so the reason I even thought of this at all was because I've tried MANASTORM 2 separate times previously. I have probably ripped more MANASTORMs to standard than any other human being on this planet, I assume. I mean, granted, it's only like 3, but I bought MANASTORMs off Ben, and I bought MANASTORMs off of what's it called? God damn it. I totally spaced it on his name. He's like one of like Uberdan or whatever, because they're like the only people that are crazy enough to like actually do those bosses in HC trade. Right. But yeah, it's like, and the problem with them was like they're always just so clunky. In the past, I tried it with, there was a claw effect that it was man, I forget what it is. It was claw, like instant leech with claws is instant or something. It was the Cemetery League where you have
Necropolis.
Necropolis League. I couldn't remember. It was like, and then later in Settlers, there was an effect that gave you instant mana leech with swords or something. But essentially, those are the two ways I've tried to solve this in the past, because it's like MANASTORM's insane damage, but really hard to solve. The Runecraft, that was the first place my mind went, just because I know that's the biggest problem of making that item function, because it's so powerful but so hard to use.
Right.
and then segue, for some reason that YouTube video that I made for this blew up, and way more people played it, and way more people that are newer played it, and it's very clunky to play properly. So a lot of people hated it. And I've never had so many questions about a build my entire life. Like the stream that I launched after I pushed this YouTube video, I spent 8 hours straight just answering questions. I didn't even get to play POE.
So what was the main thing that people were running into with this build?
Well, so if you've never played, have you ever played with an INDIGON build before?
Yeah, of course. I played I played the ball lightning warp.
Lightning warp, like Connor's build, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that one gets around one of the main actually drawbacks of INDIGON. But INDIGON is an incredibly clunky item because if you don't have a way to make your skill free, like Mjolnir does with the ball lightning warp one, but you essentially have to attack for a period of time or cast a spell for a period of time and then back off, because eventually if you attack in the same spot for too long, your mana cost will my kinetic bolt will eventually cost more than my mana pool. My kinetic bolt will hit 8,000 mana cost. I can no longer attack. I just literally have to back off for 4 seconds.
Right.
This build in particular adds to that clunk because every 4 seconds you have to cast a spell. That spell dumps your entire mana pool, your mom build. That's very dangerous. So this build's play pattern is literally the opposite of a normal build.
For people that don't know what mom is, that's mind over matter. So 40% of your damage is taken from your mana before life. So
yeah, sorry, it's so hard to not be
no, I know.
Everybody's not as entrenched as you are.
Right.
Yeah, but no, so essentially when you play a normal build, you attack, movement skill away, attack, movement skill away. This build is the opposite because you want to start attacking, and then in the middle of the attack, you need to cast a spell so that your mana gets sacrificed, and then it gets instantly refunded when those projectiles' flight ends. So it's just in this build, you'll be attacking, and then frost blinking, attacking. But it's you always want to have projectiles in flight when you cast a spell, because if you don't, your mana will bottom out, and you will not refund any of it. Because if your kinetic bolt costs 2,000 mana, and you cast a spell without projectiles in flight, you are down to 0 mana. Because it's sacrificed, everything gets sacrificed. So it's just you have to.
Okay, so you have to time everything. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
You only proc your MANASTORM in the middle of attacking. If you don't do that, or you the big one that people run into is you accidentally frostblink. If you accidentally frostblink, just not because you're playing how most builds play, you just frostblink to a new pack. If you do that on this build, you're just gonna die, and you're not gonna be able to cast your spells.
Right.
You have no damage. Yeah. So it creates this if you've never played with MANASTORM or INDIGON, they require a very active paying attention play style of you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And both of them require different things. So it's just I could never have picked a build. If I could pick a YouTube video of mine to not blow up, it would have 100% been this. Because this is the last build a new player should play. Right. Literally, I could not think of a worst possible thing. It's just the build is really weird. It has so many moving parts. It requires a very specific way of playing. And if you don't do these things, it's going to feel awful. And then later we found out there is a bug with this mana of recompense where Kinetic Bolt and Kinetic Blast both have this bug, where if you attack in an open area, even if they don't finish their chains, you don't get your mana back. It's in very open areas like Beach, Searing Exarch. Actually, the funniest one is Crouching Tuna tried to roll a variant on this build. He just took this build and played it on something else. And he thought, he probably didn't like it regardless. He's a softcore blaster or whatever. But he was trying it on Exarch and he could not sustain his mana, and he said it felt terrible. He was apparently troubleshooting with Captain Lance and everything, and he just could not get it to work from what I've heard. And it's really funny because in hindsight, it's man, he literally did it in only bugged areas for the skill. I saw he was running Dunes, where the skill this bug comes up.
It's one of the worst places you could run.
Dune, which I get because Dunes is literally my favorite map too.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I was at the time when I built this, I was running Silos, and Silos is small, so I never noticed this bug. And I tested on Uber Eater or not Uber Eater and other bosses that didn't have this he tested on Searing Exarch, which has a giant open arena, so you don't get your mana back. And then he was testing on Dunes, giant open arena, but you don't get your mana back. So it's just you run into that, the bug things breaking your builds a lot when you're trying things that people aren't trying. It just it's just really rough because it's just you never really know if it's intended or not, because based on how this rune graft is worded, initially I didn't think it was per projectile, but then thinking about it, it makes sense. But then a skill like Barrage gives you all your mana back on open areas regardless, but Kinetic Bolt doesn't. And it's just like, is that a bug? Is that intention? It's like, I assume it's a bug. But,
sounds like a bug, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like a bug, because, but it's like, which one's bugged, actually? Is Barrage not supposed to do that? Or is Kinetic Bolt not supposed to? You know what I mean? So,
Right. No, that makes sense to ask that. I mean, I would have no idea, obviously, but, you know.
Sorry I went into like a giant
no,
segue,
you're good.
but...
Yeah, the reason why I picked this is just because it looked like it has a bunch of interactions, and I think no matter how nuanced the build is, people can still learn something from the way that you set this up. Because they can take, they could be like, oh, well, he used this here, or he used this over here to solve this problem. Like, no matter what the build is, even if they're not going to play this specific build, I really feel like people can still get something out of it. And that was the reason why I had asked you about the skill gems, right? Or the support gems, is because a lot of people, they don't know how to figure out what's the best DPS support gem to put in their skill. So can you walk me through, just like pretend I don't know anything about,
that one's pretty easy. I can actually give you like the, so skill gem wise, POB will tell you this pretty easily, but the one pitfall you need to watch out for is, and this is true of making any build, POB does not tell you how something feels, right?
Right.
Because it's just like, you can put all these support gems in here that are like, for example, how I have volatility in here. Volatility is great because we have a very low minimum of damage. Like if you actually look at this POB, the minimum range of my damage is 3,000. The maximum of my damage is 4.6 million. So that means that sometimes I'm going to deal 3,700 damage. Sometimes I'm going to deal 4.6 million damage, which is like, volatility drastically raises the ceiling of a skill. So if your range is very high, volatility is just nuts. So it's like anytime you get something, generally it's lightning damage, but things like Replica Alberons are like this, it's 1 to 80. Anytime your skill has a really, really low floor and a really high ceiling, volatility is nuts. We are using Awakened Chain here because literally this is a like pseudo dead link for us. It's nice for clear, but it's strictly to refund our mana. I'm literally only using Awakened Chain here because it gives us 3 chains on our skill, which means that each projectile, in this case it's like 32 with the weird interaction Kinetic Bolt, the way it works, and refunding our mana. So we're literally just using this as to refund our mana, and then the rest are just like whatever POB says is good damage for us.
So when you do that, you just go to the gem options down there and you sort the gems by DPS, and then just go combine DPS. Is that the best option to pick?
Yeah, generally okay. You just click combine DPS, and like I could probably tell you like in general, like on this build that, so for example, the gem supports in this are like going to be some combination of critical damage and critical strikes. And that's because we are a build that needs to stack mana in every possible slot because we're a big mana build. Like that's we scale our defense, that's what we scale our offense, right? And because of that, that means that we have very, very, very little room to actually take crit multi. As you'll see on this tree, I have almost no crit multi. I have a single wheel on the tree of crit. So, and why do we want to go crit? Well, if you look at our wand, and just this is all wands in general, wands have a really high base crit. Like for example, axes, you almost never go crit on axes until really high level because they have a 5 base crit. That's so hard to overcome.
Right.
Wands base crit is like 8 to like 10. So it's just like, it's really hard to justify not going crit on wands. And a lot of times, if you're playing a build that's stacking something like this, you don't have the real estate to actually invest in the crit. But so you can use supports like critical damage, critical strikes, and then power charges to get crit for free, essentially, right? Like initially on this build, I was using Malagara's Virtuosity, a very underused pair of gloves, but they're pretty mediocre in this game. PoE 2, they're actually really cracked because they're 100 more multi. But essentially, the reason that Malagara's on this would be so good is because we can't invest in a crit multi because we just need to stack mana everywhere.
Right.
But we have a really good base crit because we're using Wand. So we need a giant source of crit multi, and that's what Malagara's is. Malagara's normally pretty mediocre gloves, but if you have no room to take a single point of crit multi on the tree, all of a sudden 150 crit multi from a pair of gloves seems incredible. Like that's, you know what I mean? That's like,
yeah, no, for sure.
So yeah, essentially, and I would say in builds in general, this isn't even this build, but it's like, there are like 3 main vectors for scaling a build. And it's like, it is literally sources of flat, sources of increased damage, and then APS. These are all direct multipliers to your damage. And increased damage isn't technically, after 100% increased damage, it's not direct
APS, you mean attacks per second, correct?
Yeah, attacks per second, cast per second. So the reason that this build gets the silly amount of damage that it does is because we get all of our flat solved from MANASTORM. We get all of our increased damage solved from INDIGON. So now that means our tree doesn't need to have either of those things, right? We don't need to, I mean, our tree can't get flat, but our weapon doesn't need flat.
Right.
So we get all of our flat from that. We get all of our increase from our helmet. And then initially on this build, I was using the Solier tech with Fire Burst and the Wand to get a consistent like Solier uptime on, what's that? What's the new ring? Coiling Whisper?
Yeah, Coiling Whisper.
Coiling Whisper, yeah, because that gives you a 225% increased attack speed. So essentially, like with those 3 items initially, we've solved all of the damage that a build could ever need. We don't need anything else. So that's like, so then how do you build a tree around that essentially?
Right. That makes sense. No, for sure.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, so
that's just wild. Like I don't know. That's a crazy puzzle that you put together here.
Yeah, well, that's why MANASTORM is so incredible because it gives you. That's why I was like geeking out when I was like making this initially because it's like normally you can't play MANASTORM and INDIGON together because as you ramp your skills cost, you can't sustain it. Like if I look at this build, my mana leech is like 2,000. I could invest like 10 more points into mana leech and I would get like 3,000, right? Like 3,000 mana leech. That's not remotely sustaining my cost. So essentially it's like those items aren't really usable together, but because they are, it's just like because this new rune graft, I knew like solved the MANASTORM problem. It's like, oh, then you can use INDIGON alongside it. It just like kind of like, I don't know. It's really weird because it's just like if you aren't experienced with these items, it's just like, but the high level is this. If you find a really big source of flat or a really big source of increased damage, you can definitely build around it. Big examples of this are replica Alberons, tons of flat, tons of people build around that.
Right.
The new, you spend ES instead of life or mana for your skills. I forget I was trying to get the Whispers of Infinity, the new amulet. Mm-hmm. You get flat chaos per attacks. RATHPITH, you get increased damage per life, increased spell damage per life. Like things like that. Essentially, like that's where you always start if you're like making a build. If you want to like generally like make like a really broken build or something, is you have something that you can abuse that gives you a scaling amount of something essentially.
So are you just looking for vectors of flat damage then, correct? That's how you start out with most of the time, or is that
vectors of flat? It's any part of that puzzle that it just so happens this build has like all of them.
Okay.
But it's like that's usually how you end up with something really powerful. But it's like if you can get one part of it solved, then it's generally like you can focus entirely on something else. A lot of times you can focus entirely on like defense or something.
Right.
But yeah, like RATHPITH gives you tons of increased damage in the way that INDIGON does. Alberons and MANASTORM give you tons of flat. But it's like essentially you're looking for something like that. Or like even I didn't even make a build around this, but I was really excited when I saw the new quiver this league. It says you fire 3 additional projectiles if you've sacrificed a minion recently. And it's just like,
okay.
What's it called? Arrow made a build around that I mentioned in the video that I suggest people make a build around it. It's a replica Alberons with that quiver. And the reason for that is because that quiver means that with Widow Hail says it gives you increase. I mean, people with POE 2 know this too. It gives you multiple effect of your quiver, right? And this quiver makes it so you fire 3 additional projectiles if you sacrifice a minion recently. With Widow Hail, that goes up to like 11. I think it's 11 or 12. So that's like 11 to 12 additional projectiles, which means if you pick a skill that scales off projectile count, that's incredibly powerful. But Widow Hail's no damage, so you need something that gives you flat. That's Replica Alberons or the Whispers of Infinity amulet or something like that. But it's just like, so it's like if you find a really powerful quantity of something that you can't get elsewhere, like on quivers, you can only get 2 projectiles with insane investment. Like you have to get a quiver with +1 arrows, and then you have to corrupt it to get another +1 arrow, which is really unlikely. But this quiver just gives you 3. So it's just like, okay, well then it's like, where do I go with that? I need to find something that scales up projectile count. And then it's like, well, if I want to go obscene with it and use Widow Hail to make that huge, well then now I need to solve flat. But it's like all of the like things kind of steer you in a certain direction, I guess.
Right.
Something like that. I don't know if that's helpful to people.
No, for sure. No, I get it. I understand it, and if I understand it, I'm sure other people will, especially if they're newer to making builds. That was like the whole point of me doing this, is because when you watch, and it's nothing against you guys, but you watch more experienced players and they're making like build guides. They're not going to take the time to sit and break down like very simply for brand new players. It's just for people that have experience with it. They share the build, and then a lot of times when I'll just speak for me, when I first started, I would look up build guides. I would have zero idea of what these people were doing in these builds, you know? So I would I'll give you an example. So I would look at a POB and I would not realize that they had their gem level to a very specific amount, right? I had no idea that was even
that one gets people all the time.
Right. So I would level my gem levels all the way up, and then all of a sudden, like my cast when damage taken isn't proccing the spell anymore, and I kept dying. And I was like, okay, wow, that's wild. I have no idea why I'm dying. But it's because, you know, cast when damage taken will only proc a skill at a certain level. So if you level that skill past that.
This build has 2 examples of that.
Okay.
Shield charge is extremely low level because this build has no strength. So we still need a movement skill. Mm-hmm. And then later on in the progression of this build, that we discovered that, and when I say we, I mean chat mentioned try it, and I finally tried it. It's awesome. But to proc the MANASTORM, you just turn off and on an aura that you put on your life, like a level 1 clarity with like arrogance, or level 1 vitality with arrogance on your life to proc your MANASTORM, because it's an instant cast. It has really low cooldown, which doesn't get affected by cooldown mods on maps.
Right.
And doesn't require you to move like Frostblink. So, but if you level it, it's just going to delete your life total. If you put it on arrogance with like vitality, it's just going to randomly remove a ton of your life.
Right.
But it's just like, and then the shield charge one, it's like, well, now you need to solve strength on the build that you don't need to bother solving strength on. So it's just like, yeah, no, that like the cast and damage taken one gets people all the time, but it's just like, knowing like what level to put your gems is like pretty easy. It's just like, do you really need this to be leveled? Do you gain anything from this? And then a lot of times it's, do you gain enough from this to justify it? The big one is like cast and damage taken on Mortal Calls only I think requires 98 strength in total, like to be like a level 1 cast and damage taken, level 3 Mortal Call. Mm-hmm. So most builds are going to need around 100 strength regardless, because you're going to play a guard skill. If you don't play a guard skill, you're just asking him to die. Sometimes you can't fit it, and that makes sense, but you generally want to reach around that amount. But then it's like, if you want to use a level 20 steel skin, you're going to have to get like 150 strength, which is a really big ask. Steel skin is less mitigation the bigger your hit pool goes, because it's a flat amount of mitigation, where Mortal Call is a less multiplier on the damage you receive. So it's like, if you have a really big hit pool, Mortal Call is going to be like way tankier. Like if you look at Ben's current Gauntlet character, he has like 20k ES. 1500 guard on steel skin's like literally peanuts. It's like a tenth of his pool, right? Mm-hmm. But like a Mortal Call, even without endurance charges, is like a 33% like mitigation, which is like huge. That like multiplies his hit pool by like, you know, like 1.3 or whatever, something crazy like that.
Right.
But it's just like it's like, so it's like, I don't know. It's even the PoE's so awesome. it's just like every aspect is just like another like tree of decisions that you have to make.
Right. Yeah. So every decision you make has like second and third rate effects. It's pretty crazy like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like even like the guard skill you use, it just like literally just like cascades into other decisions that your build has to make. Like all of a sudden, maybe I want to use a lethal pride over this other timeless jewel because I can get more strength that way. Which, and lethal pride is just generically good timeless jewel. Like without keystone, just a bunch of increased life, strength, double damage stuff. So
right.
But it's like I do that all the time. I end up using like the dex timeless jewels or the strength ones just to like, literally this build is a perfect example of that. I'm not even using keystone. I'm just using a brutal restraint because this build has a big dex problem. And I get a bunch of generic increased damage, making this just a good jewel. And it simultaneously solves a dex issue that I had.
So for the people that don't know about timeless jewels, can you just kind of explain what they are and how they work in the build?
Yeah, sure. I mean, timeless jewels...
Just generically, because I know they go crazy. Like, you can really...
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, so timeless jewels just affect a bunch of nodes in our area. So if you have a bunch of notables that you've picked in like a radius, generally it means it's a good spot for either a timeless jewel or now a light of meaning, because it's just a bunch of... Like, light of meaning works fine if you take a bunch of minor nodes. But if you have, like for example, in this character, I only have 5 notables in this slot, but that means that's 5 potential notables that this timeless jewel can add effects to. And one I have is plus 20 dexterity, one's flash charges gained, one is critical strike chance, one is dexterity, and then another is critical strike chance. So it's just like all things that are good for me. The flash charge one doesn't affect this build, but it's like essentially I need a bunch of dexterity and a bunch of damage, and this just solves that. If I need a bunch of strength, I could do a lethal pride with the exact same thing.
Right.
So it's like it's just like they're good ways to patch things in that way, but they also, I would say the more typical, it's like kind of like split, because it's like the other one is like, if you want like the good keystone, like here, Dance with Death is funny. It's a more critical strike chance while you don't have a helmet. Your damage is critical strike select while you don't have a helmet. Would be incredible in this build if I didn't have to wear INDIGON.
Right.
It's like we have a hard time getting crit and all that stuff. But yeah, it's like you either use a timeless jewel for the keystone or a bunch of like minor, just good effects, like essentially. And you can use it as like a third thing to like fix an attribute requirement problem. Because like another thing you can use, like I just used this in Gauntlet. I had a big dex, or not big. I had a big strength problem requirement, but I had a ton of dex nodes in the tree. So I used the Crimson Jewel. I think it's Inertia, the one that corrupts that transforms the dex nodes and radius to the strength instead. So it's like timeless jewels do the same thing. They don't give you as much of the attribute, but they have the added benefit of letting you keep the initial attribute and giving you positive effects if you're taking a bunch of notables in the radius. So it's like essentially those transformative jewels, if you're using them on a non-stat stacker, they're essentially just the same thing, just better. That's the progression to me. It's like you use one of these cheap corrupted jewels, you can get these really easy in like SSF, and then eventually you replace it with a timeless jewel to do the same thing.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, these things are, my favorite one is the Elegant Hubris, but that's just because it removes all stat requirements once you put on Supreme Ostentation. I love that. That's just one less thing that I have to worry about, and I like items like that where it just completely takes stuff off the board.
You want to pull up my champion POB in that Word doc? Because I can show you an exact use case of that. I use that in that build.
Okay, cool. So we're over to the champion now. So go ahead. And what were you going to talk? You were going to talk about.
I was just talking about
Hubris?
because. Yeah, just because we were talking about Supreme Ostentation and as like a great way to solve a build that needs a bunch of attribute problems. So I was using Supreme Ostentation in this build because I noticed a weird interaction with Spectral Throw in the random. Just as a side note, if you want to find out if a skill is broken or not, one of the first things you should check is what different levels of projectile speed do to that skill, and the easiest way to test like hit count is to do a self-poison test, which I don't know if you want me to go through, but that's I feel like that's one of because that's like one of my like main things I harp on my channel is I always do self-poison test with the golden rule, which says that any poison you inflict are reflected back to you. So you just get a 100% chance of poison, put on golden rule, make your damage bad but not too bad so that you don't deal damage, make sure you have a 100% chance to poison, and then go to Aberath in Act 6 and hit him with something and see how many times it actually gives you poison stack, because POE does not, unfortunately, at this time have a test dummy, which Last Epoch does, and so does Torchlight Infinite, and one day GG, please, dear God, please. Give us a target dummy.
No, he said there, I don't know, I talked about this last couple of times actually, but during the Q&A that we were talking about before, he said that, and I know that this is just how he is, but they don't want to do the practice dummy for whatever reason, but they're going to add a feature into the game where you can pause the game and then hold your cursor over a mob, and it'll tell you effectively how much damage you're going to do to that monster based on its, on its buffs, what are the debuffs.
See, that actually sounds incredible.
Right,
but that sounds awesome.
But the thing is that you have to pause the game. So if for testing, it would be great, right? But like, if you want, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people do have a problem with it, I guess. I think it's kind of cool, but a lot of people would just much rather have the dummy. I don't know why, but maybe because you don't have to pause the game to do it. I think that might be a little annoying.
I would love a target dummy. I mean, I have to run to Act 6 with Aberath. I've made the run from the from like after the prison until Aberath probably like 1,000 times within the past year, just because if I need to test how many times something hits, which you can't really verify without truly knowing how many times you applied a poison, because it's just like in current POE, it's just POE 2 for a while there was wither, sources of wither. You could put wither on a support gem as like a way to do this without having to do self-poison, because you could just hover over the mob, see the number of wither stacks.
Right.
POE 1, we have to do the self-poison test. So essentially you go to Aberath, you hit him, see how many times it collides, and essentially what happened was I was watching Fearless Dumbo. He posted a video talking about how busted the new Spectral Throw of Charthus gem is, because with the new gloves, they say your projectile speed is varied between 50% more proj speed and 50% less proj speed, right? Spectral Throw, if you guys don't know, the way it works is it has a hit interval. I think it's like a 0.2 milliseconds or something like that. But if you can extend the duration that the projectile stays on an enemy, you can extend the number of times it hits, or you can increase the number of projectile count. So normally with Spectral Throw, you're looking at 3, maybe 4 hits at like perfect lining it up perfectly, like right where it turns around. You can get like 3 to 4 hits, right?
Okay.
But with the random direction, if you attack a mob and throw 5 projectiles out, they're all going to vary wildly. So you're going to hit them like once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. It's just going to like hit an obscene amount of times because while that skill doesn't directly shotgun, each one of those is eligible for a hit after the duration it's supposed to wait before it can check and hit the mob again, much like ball lightning.
Okay.
But anyways, I get like off on 9 side tangents.
You're good.
But essentially, I confirmed his test with like by doing that breath test. Like went to go hit him to confirm that works, and then I was like, well, I wonder if it's good with the other Spectral Throw gems because it should work the same way, and it did. And I realized the split behavior when you snipers mark something, it does the same thing. It splits off more projectiles and then they come back and they hit again. So I was getting upwards of like 8 to 9 hits with Spectral Throw.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
And like, so it's funny, right now in the Gauntlet, Ben's character that he died with was Molten Strike. I opened his POB, and if he used Spectral Throw materialization, he would have 3 to 4 times his damage, as opposed to Molten Strike, and he would have it from a distance. But I assume Ben doesn't know how good Spectral Throw materialization is because I'm a really small YouTuber.
Right.
But and he has a Nimmies now, so it doesn't matter. So Molten Strike's good again. But it's really funny because Spectral Throw materialization is the highest damage skill in the game right now because of that interaction.
Really?
And yeah, it's like about 4,000 effectiveness, which is
wow,
like a like a little over double Zenith.
Right.
With the Nimmies, but so it's a ridiculous skill. It feels terrible to play, but anyways, yeah. If you want to test a skill, first see how many times it hits, and then mess around with the prod speed, and then see how many times it hits again, because essentially that's what happened here. Is it's just like, well, I'll try this other gem. Spectral Throw materialization is a really high damage skill. Just based on the effectiveness that's listed, it's 370, which is pretty high. That's like in the high range of an attack. So anyways, tested that, figured out it hits a ton of times, and then realized that tested it with splitting because that's like the next vector you test on projectile skills. So it put Sniper's Mark on him. So I got 2 more hits, which is really fucked up. Blazing Salvo does this, Spectral Throw does this. There are multiple skills where they split off and then can hit again. Mm-hmm. This skill is another skill that does that. I tested it with more mark effect. I got 50% mark effect. It was like 1 to 2 more hits. Got 50% more mark effect, 1 to 2 more hits again. And it just like kept going like that. So I'm like, shit. So I want to stack mark effect to the fucking moon because it just adds to additional hits. Well, if I need to do that, I need to dump all my dex nodes. If I dump all my dex nodes, I'm like a 220 requiring dex character. I think I need a way to get rid of all of my dex being mandatory at all. So then Supreme Ostentation. Right. Essentially, that's a really, really long roundabout way to get there. But it's
that's perfect though. I mean, you explained a lot. I mean, that's really what people should be looking to do is like looking to test interactions like that. You know, that's how you get to these decisions that you made on this build. Have you tested that on the new Spectral Helix?
Spectral Helix
of Trothus, the one that throws the trap, because it throws.
So I know that skill is very, very good. I know that it also works really well with reduced prod speed.
Okay.
Just because it works exactly like how normal Spectral Throw works, which is very good with that. That skill also has a similar downside to this in that if you do that, the skill becomes unplayable, but you can use it for uber bossing, which is what I was using this for.
Okay.
So it's just like because of how bad it feels. Like low projectile speed Spectral Helix is still really incredibly high damage. People used to use reflected amulets to get like almost 0 prod speed to get like, because that skill hit checks until it finishes its rotation, which if you make it rotate like 10 seconds, it's going to keep hit checking and just do obscene amounts of damage.
Right. You could stack. That would be a really good way to stack poison, correct?
Well, so poison, there's actually, honestly, that's a really good segue into something. The POE community generally always thinks that you need something that hits a lot to scale poison well, which ends up being true not because of that's how poison works, but that's just because of skills that work well with poison. Because it turns skills that like GMP is normally 26% less damage, right? Poison skills are not affected by that less projectile speed modifier.
You mean greater multiple?
Greater multiple projectiles or greater volley, but they're the same in this instance. That like they reduce the damage of your skill, but they help your clear speed. But if you take a skill that can shotgun inherently, and it poisons, less projectile speed does not affect poison damage. Poison damage is not affected by spell damage, not affected by projectile damage, attack damage, melee damage. It's only affected by increases to chaos damage, physical damage, and poison damage, and chaos.multi and stuff like that.
Can
Unless
you
it's using
explain?
pneumatic.
Can you explain the shotgunning? Because there seems to be some debate, I guess, of whether or not this exists in the game. Can you explain what shotgunning is?
Sure. Well, some people will get very pedantic and say that true shotgunning doesn't exist.
Right.
And that is technically true because you cannot have one projectile. You cannot. So like for caustic arrow is the best example of this because caustic arrow is almost impossible not to shotgun with. It just the pool it creates is massive. So like let's say I have it's incredible league starter. I have no idea why it's fallen off by the way. Anyways, caustic arrow like let's say you put 9 projectiles on it. If you shoot those at a mob, they will all explode on contact. If you shoot them at the ground, they will all explode in this giant pool. You will get 9 hits every time. It's just caustic arrow poison. Great skill because of that. Creeping Frost, same exact behavior. It collides when it hits the ground. Blazing Salvo does this. Like all these skills that are ground targeting in particular make it very easy to shotgun because they don't need to collide with something to stop. They just need to hit the ground.
Okay.
Like so those skills will all inherently shotgun. Winter Orb does the same thing too. There's like all the projectile skills that are ground targeting for the most part can shotgun because for a skill to shotgun in current POE, it needs to have an AoE component because while one projectile can only hit an enemy, right? AoEs from any number of projectiles can overlap on the same enemy. For example, Ellie Hit of the Spectrum doesn't shotgun in the same way as Caustic Arrow, Creeping Frost, those ones because they're not ground targeted. But when Ellie Hit of the Spectrum hits something, it creates a giant AoE. So if you're playing like a Spellslinger build or you're playing like a Wander version of Ellie Hit of the Spectrum, and you Spellsling a tornado at point blank range, with you're gonna attack with your Ellie Hit of the Spectrum. It's gonna hit the tornado, create an AoE, hitting the boss, and then it's gonna continue and hit the boss again, and then create another AoE. So you're gonna get 2 hits.
Okay.
But it's like any skill that has an AoE can potentially shotgun unless it says mechanically it can or something. Like Earth Shatter can do this because it has multiple overlapping AoEs. Pretty much anything that creates AoEs can hit the same enemy. Like even Spell Cascade plus Storm Call can do this. Spell Cascade plus Reap can do this. Like anything that creates multiple AoE components, if you can get them to overlap in the same area, can shotgun.
Okay.
That's like I feel like a really long-winded way to say it, but it's like
no, that makes
those
sense.
are pretty much the only skills that can shotgun in PoE.
So would Frostblink, Wintry Blast, Mines do the same thing?
Yeah, it hits twice because Frostblink of Wintry Blast has like an AoE when you start it and AoE when you end it. I think normal Frostblink does too, but you can't really scale that outside of Ignite, and then the double hit doesn't matter because Ignite's you only need to hit once. But
yeah, Frostblink Wintry Blast scales with chill effect, so that's why it's a lot better.
Yeah. Well, it has a much higher effectiveness of damage as far as actually. I don't even know if that's true, but it doesn't have a cooldown, so essentially you can use it with mines.
Actually,
like the normal Frostblink.
Frostblink
I assume actually has a higher.
Yeah, it's got 250 effective, and then Frostblink of Wintry Blast has 200 effectiveness of added damage. Can you explain that?
The true effectiveness is multiplied by its chill component.
Right.
So its true effectiveness is like 400 or something, if depending on how hard you scale it.
So can you explain effectiveness of added damage to people and just kind of how that works and how you factor that in as far as like, because you obviously the tooltip's going to say 200, right? So how are you factoring that in that it does more effective damage?
Oh, sure. I actually have a whole video on that if people find that helpful too, of where I go over the effectiveness of spells. But essentially, it's like to get the true effectiveness of a skill, you want to see how many times it hits and then see what the attack rate of it is, and then that's just what your true effectiveness is. Like for example, old Lightning Strike had a 450% effectiveness at 100% attack speed, so that's just 450. But as I assume most people know, Lightning Strike also double hits because it can hit with the attack and it can hit with the projectile. It can only get 2 hits, but it gives it a 900% effectiveness because that's both. Now it's a little bit lower. Now it's like 675 because it's half damage on the proj. But essentially, and then Smite's the same thing. It can hit once with the melee hit, once with the AoE component. Its true effectiveness is twice what it's actually listed, but then you multiply it by 0.85 because it has a 0.85 attack multiplier. Makes it, I think, around like 780 effectiveness, higher than Lightning Strike. It's why I did a league start practice run before this league saying that I think this league is going to replace Lightning Strike because it's the same thing. It's just double hits. It's the new Lightning Strike, etc. But anyways, that's pretty much all it is it's like getting the hit count and then multiplying it by the attack speed of the skill.
Right.
Like arc I think is listed as 120, but its true effectiveness is like I think it has 9 chains at level 21 because there's a breakpoint at level 21 where it gets +1 chain. So it ends up being like around like 240, which is horrendous. Truly one of the worst skills in the game, which sucks because arc was one of my favorite skills when I started playing POE. Skills doesn't deal damage currently. And then like another like example of that is like a vortex projection hits 4 times, potentially 4 times. Or actually, is it 5? Actually, man, how do I forget this? I think it's 5. I literally have a video on this. I don't know how I'm misremembering, but it's literally its effectiveness multiplied the times it hits, but then you multiply it by 1.5 again because it says it does 50% more damage when expanded from Frostbolt. So that's pretty much that. And if you want like a good number of like what a good effectiveness is, you can generally look at a meta skill and see what its value is, and then kind of just compare it and kind of go offhand. Like 900% effectiveness is very high for an attack. Like Lightning Strike was very out of line.
So that effectiveness of added damage, you're like, so let's just say you had a skill that had 200% effectiveness of added damage, just to make this very simple for people.
Sure.
And you added 1 to 10 flat damage on that build. Would it do 2 to 20% or 2 to 20 damage? Yep. Okay.
Yep,
just to kind of clarify for people what that actually does.
And then for weapons, for attacks in general, the flat on your weapon or the damage list on your weapon is exactly that. Like if you have an axe that was 50 to 100, that was added to this 200 effectiveness skill, you essentially would have 100 to 200, right? It's just right. Multiplied by the effectiveness of the skill.
Right.
And then so that's basically how it works. But it's kind of, you kind of want to be in that range. Like Vortex of Projection has like around 1,000 effectiveness, but it's a 2-button skill. Very clunky. You have to scale prod speed really low on the first skill to get the Frostbolts to be close to you. And then you have a skill like Ball Lightning of Orbiting, which is 650 effectiveness because it can hit 13 times without too much investment. And that is also quite high for a spell. So it's like generally like north of 500% effectiveness is where like a skill becomes playable. Like you can play skills, like you can play POE, you can play whatever you want, which I'm saying like with low levels of investment, that's like what you want to look at for something to be broken. Like Molten Strike before the last nerf, I don't even know what it's at now, was generally like around like 1,000 effectiveness. It was very slightly higher than Lightning Strike, which is hilarious because it's a really heinous skill to clear with. I played with it a lot. I literally just play from the Gauntlet again, but it's just like that. Just to give an example of like why something like Lightning Strike is so out of line. But yeah, essentially you kind of want to like have an idea of what an acceptable effectiveness is before you like want to spend the time of a skill to see if it's actually worth investigating. Right. Unless the skill has incredible clear, like you can get away with a lot if like a skill like does something else for you that's really, really important. Like Spark has very low true effectiveness added damage in the vast majority of cases, but it feels incredible to play. So people always try to play Spark. Same with Tornado Shot to an extent too before high level investment. It's just like Corrupting Fever is like the perfect poster child of this. Corrupting Fever is one of the worst skills in the game damage wise, but people want to play with it because it's like you connect blast the screen, just everything gets dotted up and feels awesome.
Right.
So it's not always the end all be all, but it's like it'll generally tell you if something is like viable early, essentially. Okay. Yeah. Which is what I care about because I always play stuff on a budget. So.
All right. All right. So yeah, that's I kind of want to shift into defense now that since we have the champion pulled up now because it's got a way higher effective hit pool than the Trickster does. So let's talk about just where you went on this POB just for the defensive layers of it and why you made those decisions.
Sure. So high level, the reason I went champion on this build was because once I realized Spectral Throw Materialization is the highest damage skill in the game, my first thought of that was, well, if I have like double Molten Strike Zenith plus Neme's like damage, that means I should find something that is like tanky as hell because it's like my damage has basically been solved. It's just like I'm going to have infinite damage kind of whatever I do if I use the skill. So how do I make it the tankiest thing as possible? And I still am honestly not that happy with how this turned out because I was boss rushing T17s on this to do like Uber fights and stuff. And I was still dying a lot on Abominations. God, it's like that boss fight is just miserable. But
yeah, it's an annoying fight.
Champ gives you a really good baseline of defense, kind of just like without much effort. He gives you built-in fortification. He gives you, actually, God, see, it's like, he gives you what's it called? Like free hits can't be evaded. He gives you tons of aura effect to scale your grace and determination. He gives you adrenaline, which is a bunch of phys mitigation and a bunch of movement speed. He gives you a bunch of baseline built-in defenses while being in a pretty decent spot on the tree for this kind of thing. Because it's like Deadeye has literally all the scaling vectors for this to like literally mark effect scales this skill directly. Deadeye has that built in. Projectile count scales the skill directly. Deadeye has that built in. She has long shot. The skill literally needs to extend a certain duration before it comes back. So it's just like she's just like literally at least double the damage of champion on this. So it's like she could get to like 1 billion damage, like not a meme amount of billion damage, but like literally that's what the number would be. But
right.
But you don't need that for anything. You literally don't need that for like anything. Maybe Valdo's maps, but essentially champion has good baked in defenses. So it was that. It's like you could look at the same thing and consider going something like a Juggernaut. Like if you have something that has obscene damage, like Molten Strikes like this, where the skill is really good damage, so you just like want to solve your defenses. You just pick an inherently defensive ascendancy baseline. The reason we don't go Marauder on something like this is just because the section of the tree we're at is so far from his start. It would eat so many points, and it would just be too difficult to actually put this together with like the duration, like with the section of the tree we actually need to get to. Because Marauder would do the same thing. He's like, it's pretty much between this and Juggernaut and Deadeye for damage. It's like there's not really, and then Trickster if you go Ephemeral Edge, which is literally the other way to build this, which is actually what I was going to do in Gauntlet. But because energy shield's a little too pushed right now. But But yeah, essentially, it's once you have enough damage, you should look of where do I need to be on the tree, and how can I solve my defenses? And it's just like, what do I get for free? So it's like if you have a ton of damage, just look at one of the defense tendencies between Trickster, Juggernaut, Champion. There's a lot of them. Like honestly, there's not a lot of them. There's probably like 3 or 4 ascendancies that I look at. Those 3 are the first that I always would look at. Champion, Trickster, and Juggernaut.
What makes the Tricksters so defensive?
Trickster gets so defensive because it's weird because it's almost exclusively Ephemeral Edge, but it's mostly his Escape Artist node makes it so that you get to use a Necrotic Armor, which means that you get to use a Necrotic Armor that gives you the same amount of energy shield as something like a Twilight Regalia. And why that's so powerful is because that gives you a shit ton of evasion, which is inherently very defensive in itself. Like those big ES characters that you normally see, they don't normally have much evasion. They normally don't have much avoidance at all because they've dumped everything into energy shield bases, which don't give you any of that stuff, right?
Right.
But Trickster lets you do all of that. He essentially is that, but you get evasion for free. And if you get evasion for free, he just inherently is going to be tankier than the other ES options, right? So that's one of the nice things about it. And then because you're scaling, if you want to scale ES to the moon to get really tanky, you can use either Energy Blade or Ephemeral Edge to convert essentially your defenses into damage. So it's like anytime, and this isn't even PoE. This is any game at all, where you can scale your defense off. You can scale your offense off your defense. It's just broken. There's just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's always going to be inherently powerful.
Right. That's what Pox had brought up in the last episode. Was he said that's like a no-brainer as long as you can scale your damage off of your defense, and it's like that's 100% what you should pick.
Yeah, it's the same reason that while RATHPITH is an incredibly strong item regardless, the fact that it scales off of a defensive stat in life makes it even stronger, because it's just like you wanted to stack that anyway. But it's like sometimes you'll see people just stack like 20k life because it's just like, well, this is just like all of a sudden my RATHPITH gives me like thousands upon thousands of increased damage and like crit caps me.
Right.
Which is just like absolutely wild. So
for RATHPITH, just kind of explain how this mechanic works for people. How are you solving for the downside? Because it's going to sacrifice 10% of your life to use or trigger a spell. So obviously if you're casting a lot, your life's going to get taken down pretty quick. So how are you solving for that?
Yeah, so pretty much immediately, anytime that you see something like that says sacrifice X of like life or ES or something like that, that generally means if you can't mitigate that, which like, for example, in Forbidden Right, you can get Chaos Res or you can go CI to mitigate the downside of something like that does the same thing. So that one can be solved. But otherwise, like on RATHPITH, you can't mitigate the sacrifice. It just happens. So what do? You pick any skill that has a duration or hits over an extended period of time. So because you don't want to scale something off of APS. Either that or you can play something that scales off of attack or cast speed, as long as it's not something you need to keep casting. Like for example, brands still let you scale off cast speed, but you don't need to spam them to get them down with RATHPITH out. Because, like, if, for example, if I look at my if I look at my spectral throw character, I forget how many attacks he has, like a second. It's like 8 or 10 or something like that. You would just die. Like, you can't do that with RATHPITH.
Right.
You need something that's a duration or something that you don't need to put down regularly. Like, a lot of people use Tornado of Elemental Turbulence because it's a duration skill. You could use something like Seismic Trap. You could use Brands, Void Sphere of Rending. Anything that you don't gain anything by spamming is what you use with RATHPITH.
So could you do like
a
could you do like a life stack Seismic Trap of Swells with RATHPITH?
I have no idea how good Seismic Trap of Swells is, but yeah, that's like the perfect kind of build that's the perfect kind of skill for this. If that skill's good, I have no idea. Actually,
I just like
one of the only skills I haven't tested with.
I like that skill, and I like the way it plays, and I don't know. I like traps and like miners, so like I wanted to figure out a way to make this work. So it's kind of funny that we actually brought this up.
Oh yeah, no. Seismic Trap is like the poster child of skill that makes sense for RATHPITH.
Okay.
It's just like a skill that scales off of duration that you can't spam because it literally has a cooldown, which normally is a bad thing, but in this it's literally a good thing.
Oh, so Seismic Trap of Swells does not have the duration tag on it. So
wait, does it not really?
Yeah, I'm looking at it in POB right now. It's only got Trap, Spell, AoE, and Physical, but Seismic Trap has Trap, Spell, Duration, AoE, Physical. Which is weird because it has the exact same. It has a duration. Yeah. It has the exact same.
Oh wait, does it not?
Description.
Oh. Actually, I didn't know this. It looks like the Seismic Trap with Swells not release the swells over the duration of the trap.
No, it does. It says trap. It says trap lasts 4 seconds and releases 3 waves. The same thing as this one does. Oh, this one. Okay, wait. So this one says releases waves every 0.9 seconds. Base duration is 3.5 seconds. So I don't know.
So the base direction you're seeing is actually one of the really annoying ways that they word things in POE.
Okay.
Traps and mines inherently have a duration, but they do not inherently have a duration tag. Like, for example, Pyroclast minus Sabotage, a skill that I've used many times, and it's like the poster child for unreasonable thing for one-shotting stuff. You cannot scale directly off duration. You have to literally take mine duration because it technically is not a duration skill. It is a mine which has a duration, but that is only scaled off mine duration. Much like I don't know of ways to scale trap duration, but like, for example, Sunblast reduces trap duration by up to 0.75 seconds, which makes the trap last for most traps last 4 seconds, but it'll make them last 1 second.
Okay.
Unless it's like Ice Trap of Hollowness, which lasts 2 seconds by default, it goes down to like 0.5, making it less clunky with that than other things. But yeah, so I don't know that Seismic Trap of Swells would work with this. Now that we're looking at it. It technically still would work to an extent because it's a cooldown skill. So it's like it's a skill that you can't spam, so it should inherently work well with RATHPITH.
Right.
Because assuming the skill is balanced around, it's, I like I said, I don't know how many times the skill hits. I don't know how good it is, but
right.
But that is like that is literally like a cooldown skill, a duration skill. Like anything that incentivizes you not to spam something is good for something like RATHPITH.
Okay.
Because it's like, so yeah, it's like that's like a pretty good way to do it though. Is like RATHPITH is obviously very strong, but it puts very real constraints on how you build it. So it's just like then finding skills that work in that constraint and then building around it. It really doesn't ask that much of you other than to stack a lot of life. Right. And not play a spammable skill.
Well, what I was doing was I was using this paired with Disillusion of Flesh, and I was using Hex Blast with it, and it worked fine. But when I went back, I don't know if they changed the way that Dissolution works or something. When I went back, it didn't work the same as the other skills. I don't know. I must have just made a mistake making the build. Obviously, I'm still pretty new at putting together builds, but I don't know what I did, but it was not working the same as it was back in Frisia.
I wonder if there's because I forget what there is an existing bug with Dissolution of Flesh, but I don't remember what it is. I don't think that's it. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's weird. That should as far as I know work. I mean, Dissolution of Flesh is really common to pair with RATHPITH for that reason because it's like literally like multiplies your life total, which multiplies your damage. So
right.
Very very powerful interaction. An item that I have not used a lot. Because it's weird. It's one of the only uniques I've never like truly tried because I always just thought it would feel so clunky. But I bet it's not as bad as I think it is, or maybe it's worse. I don't know. I've always just been scared of it because it always just seems so uncomfortable to me. But,
which unique is that?
It's really powerful. Dissolution.
Oh, Dissolution. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's very strong. It's very strange that I haven't tried it because I feel like I've tried most things. The only things I really don't try are usually just minion stuff. But
I basically felt immortal using this. using this gem when I was playing the Hex Blast, because I was playing a Bog Shaman in Freesia, so I was obviously life
Oh god, yeah. See, that sounds so fun. That was one of the builds I wanted to try.
It was essentially immortal, and it just wiped everything. And that was obviously, I mean, they nuked Hex Blast out of orbit in this next update, but back then it was in Freesia, it was a lot of fun, dude. And I just felt like I could never die. And then once you're,
once you have a massive pool, it's so fun.
Right. And then, but the cool thing about this is, right, like it reserves your life, right? So life that would be lost by damage is instead reserved. So, but the cool thing about it is that if you have auras, right, to reserve life, if your life drops down below the reserved rate, it'll just take off the aura. And then,
so funny.
You just have to reapply.
I actually didn't even know that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So it like literally gives you more hit pool access. Exactly. Too, if you're like gonna die. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's kind of like a backup. You have like backup HP. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like this is like your emergency resource.
Right.
It's kind of like when you're like a hybrid character and it's like it goes past your energy shield and starts hitting your life. It's like, okay, now I need to back off.
Right.
yeah. Rock Shaman's really cool. We're using something like Apostate or anything on that, or.
I can pull it back up. Actually, I think I still have the POB.
I'm a big fan of Apostate. I wasn't sure if you were using that or not.
I don't remember what I was using. Let's see. I can pull it back up.
If your POBs are as bad as mine, I find it impossible to find anything.
No, I got it. I tend to label them pretty decent. Let's see.
I do too. I just have like.
So no, I was using the Covenant.
Oh yeah. That makes sense too. Yeah. Covenant's insane. Man, see, you want to go back to items that completely solve flat for you. Covenant is a great example of that. It's like 500 flat chaos, which is about 500 flat is usually what it takes to double the damage of a skill. So the Covenant, you could literally use a level 1 Ice Spear or level 1 Creeping Frost, put GMP on it, Unbound Ailments, and Chance to Poison. And you just have a decent build all of a sudden because the Covenant gives you all of your flat. So you just play your stupid LE skill as a poison skill because you get so much flat from the Covenant.
Right.
It's like anytime, I don't know. It's like those are always really interesting because it's like Spellblade does like a similar thing where it's like you just essentially can overwrite what a skill is supposed to do because of how much flat they give you.
Yeah.
Like you actually, a good example of that is Archmage. Archmage and then Ephemeral Edge, like if you're playing like Ephemeral Edge Molten Strike, you're going to see people using Lightning Pen. Molten Strike's fire skill, but it's like that part doesn't matter. Just get all your flat from Ephemeral Edge.
Right. Same with Archmage does the same exact thing, correct?
Yeah, yep. Like all the cold skills because they'll usually use like Vortex Projection or Ice Nova Projection before it got nerfed. And I think people still frequently use that one because it's more comfy. But yeah, they just use like Lightning Pen on like their inherent cold skill, so it doesn't even matter if they scale the level of it. GG did make a change very recently that some spells scale effectiveness with level, like up to level 20. But that's mostly just a campaign nerf to things like Rolling Magma. Like Rolling Magma is like one of the ones that's like the... But yeah.
That's cool.
Kind of yeah. It's very, very interesting that you can do that in PoE, that you can just like essentially throw away the intended use of a skill and make it do something else entirely.
So let's go back to your champion real quick. We're gonna have to wrap this up here in about 5 minutes, but just to go over, because I gotta get on stream. But
oh sure, yeah, I'm sorry I sidetracked.
No, you're good. No, this has been awesome. I honestly think that doing the podcast like this is going to be way more beneficial for people because then you can kind of like break down specific interactions with certain items and whatever it is that you're doing in a specific build, and they can apply that to other things that they're trying to do. So I think it's actually more beneficial to do it this way. But yeah, so just to touch more on the defenses of this champion build, can you walk me through the rest of it real quick?
Oh, sure. Let me actually look at this again. So one of the things
I kind of threw. I'm sorry. I apologize. I threw you off on asking you about the trickster, and then we went down this like long tangent. So
see, this actually is a good kind of segue into something we talked about earlier. In that, anytime you get to scale your defenses off of your offense off your defense, it's very powerful. This build is abusing the fact that Perseverance does that. Perseverance, if I take off my Perseverance here, let's see, it's like 40% more damage. It's just like because I'm scaling armor and evasion really high because I want to scale my armor really high, because if I scale my armor really high, I can scale a really fat Molten Shell. Mm-hmm. If I scale a fat Molten Shell, that just means I have a really good max hit pool. If I scale my evasion really high, I have a really good Avoidance Layer. So it's like those are like the cornerstones of a good defensive build are actually pretty simple. It's, do you have a good max hit? Do you have good avoidance so that you don't have to like just get hit by everything? And then do you have good recovery? It's pretty much those three axes are the only thing that really matter on a build. Like honestly, like defensively, like you can kind of cheese some of them by getting one really big. Like energy shield builds do this a lot, where it's like normally it's going to feel terrible to play a build that has no avoidance, unless you get such a big hit pool that doesn't matter. So generally, like for a normal build, you want to make it so you have some way to avoid attacks and some way to either avoid or mitigate spells. It's the common way is evasion plus spell suppression, or block plus spell suppression. Spell suppression is an optional stat in softcore, I think, but it's like it's generally not the case with like hardcore. But and then you want to have like a decent either life pool or ES pool, and then generally some kind of guard skill to pair with that. So when you actually get hit, you actually get even further mitigation, which, like I was saying, like a Mortal Call is going to be really good if you have a really big hit pool, where something like Automation plus Steel Skin or Castaneer's Taken Steel Skin is much better on lower levels. Where generally the reason you don't want to do Castaneer's Taken Steel Skin when you have a low hit pool is because, like, let's say you have a 3,000 life character. If you do a level 20 Castaneer's Taken and a level 20 Steel Skin, that will proc after you've taken like 2,000 damage, which you will be dead by then. So it's just like you generally are going to either want to manually click that or automate that. So it's like it's actually up. But yeah, that's pretty. It's pretty simple. Like getting defenses just on like a high level, it is way harder to get defenses on an Ascensia that does not give you something like that baked in. Damage is a lot easier to get in this game than defenses are. So generally, if you can, you want to start from a defensive standpoint first, and then go towards damage, because damage you can always get. It's just like this character, like if I switch this to a Deadeye, my hit pool would get to at least like half of this. If
yeah,
not,
get nuked for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it would get obliterated. I would double my damage, but that doesn't really matter. So it's like,
it doesn't matter if
like,
you're dead.
You can't, yeah, exactly. It's like you can have a billion damage all you want, but if you're dead, you don't get to use that. So
right.
So it's just like that's kind of just POE in a nutshell. It's like I love the fact that they unnerfed the Fortify node again on Champion. If I didn't have to use the gloves that give me random projectile, the infamous mod that makes this build broken, I would 100% use Celestial Brace and scale Fortification stacks even higher to get even more mitigation. But I literally, my glove slot is accounted for, and it breaks my heart. I actually built this character initially playing use Celestial Brace, and it's like, oh duh, I literally have to use the gloves. So,
right.
So.
Yeah, so you would just say
Champion. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say Champion again. A point we're gonna talk about like a billion times. His Unstoppable Hero node gives you increased attack speed per fortification above 20. That literally is scaling your damage off of defense again. Yep. It's just like he's the poster child for this. Like his Adrenaline node gives you 100% increased damage, 8% additional physical mitigation, and then 25% attack, cast, and movement speed. So he literally, every part of Champion is just like, do you want damage and defense? Do you want damage and defense? Do you want damage and defense? It's just like that's just like all he is.
Yeah, and then not only that, but the not having to worry about accuracy is a big deal. You know, I mean, that's just like, it saves so many points on the tree.
Yeah, it's funny. Champion has the easiest way to solve accuracy because he gives you tons of baked in aura effect. He gives you like 35, which makes your precisions really fat. But and you normally get a ton of from the decks on the tree that you path by, right? But this character throws away all of his decks. So it's like, yeah, the evasion part on this is actually really big. I think his my hit chance is, God, what is it without it? It's like 20% without without this node. It's 17% chance to hit without this node.
Yeah.
Because it's like I've thrown away all of my decks. So yeah, the hits can't be evaded mod is very, 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 very powerful. And just like, it's why people opt, like on pneumatic daggers, they'll opt for 2 T2 like LE mods and hits can be evaded versus 3, because while a third LE damage mod would be like 20% more damage, you generally get 20% more damage by not having to spec accuracy. So it's just like kind of like you can make trade-offs like that all the time, where it's like well, this is technically more damage, but if it costs you like 10 points or something like that, it's like it's not really. I don't know.
So would you say, what I was going to ask you, would you say that a good way to break down defenses like into 3 parts would just be, so you either, depending on what side of the tree you're on, you either want to go armor and block or evasion and spell suppression. And then from there, you want to go for ailments, right? Like ailment immunity, curse immunity. And then from there, you want to go with regeneration. Would that be like the hierarchy of like defensive vectors, or?
I think the two most important, more than anything by like a mile, are a good max hit and good avoidance.
Okay.
And I think, and again, avoidance can be skipped on some level the higher your hit pool is, but early in a character progression that you can't, that's like not really negotiable, just because like you're just not going to have the gear to have that big of a hit pool yet. Unless you're like a ancestral commander in like the gauntlet or whatever, you know, you get all the endurance charges.
Right. Yeah,
but then
that's
it's
going to
like,
come back anytime soon after.
Yeah, exactly. It's that essentially makes no sense. He like literally has everything baked in. But yeah, it's like pretty much those, and then the sustain one is like kind of free-ish to an extent on like builds that can attack because you get baked in leech.
Yeah.
Spells don't nearly have a good access to that, especially early on. Like later on, you get life leech on spells, but not as much as like attacks. Attacks just get that baked in immediately. And then if you can't leech, you need to have regen. Ideally, you have both, but generally you just have to make cuts somewhere, and you just can't have it all. Like Inquisitor has a ton of baked in regen, which makes him way tankier than you would seem, and he has hybrid regen, which is not seen elsewhere really. Like he sustains his life pool and his ES pool at the same time, so it's like he can get away with, like, a lot of times Inquisitors you will see not even going block because they'll just get a massive life and ES pool, and then they'll have hybrid sustain, so they can kind of skip that. So it's like if you have something really strong for like one of the other defensive parts, you can kind of skimp on the other one if you can get away with it. But yeah, obviously you would love to have it all, but it's like a lot of times it's just you just have to make cuts somewhere.
Right. Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this on a Friday night. Can you let people know where they can find you and how they can support your channel?
Sure. Yeah, this was fun. But yeah, you can just follow me on YouTube at Poopbutts2200. Like I said, I might be doing a rebrand of Butsy. We'll see how that all shakes out. And then Twitch, currently my name is Butsy__. So yeah, follow me there.
Thank you guys for watching another episode. And if you got anything out of that, if you found that helpful at all, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. Also, don't forget my guest. Make sure to subscribe to his channels as well. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.